At 4:14 a.m. local time on July 3, 2026, Western Crimea appeared untouchable. Radar crews watched the Black Sea. Russian aircraft sat behind reinforced doors, and layered defenses surrounded one of Moscow's most valuable aviation hubs. Then the warning screens began to change. Small contacts appeared, vanished, and returned from directions the defenders could not ignore. What followed was more than another drone raid. It tested whether a fortified air base could still protect the machines and infrastructure keeping Russia's air war alive. The larger question was harder to dismiss. Had Ukraine found a way to turn Crimea's defenses into a costly trap? Stay with Military Force as we examine what happened, what remains uncertain, and why it matters far beyond Saki. Saki is more than a runway and a group of aircraft shelters. It is one of the aviation hubs that helps Russia watch the Black Sea, support military operations in southern Ukraine, and keep combat aircraft close to an active war zone. The base sits near Novo-Fedorivka on the western coast of Crimea, where its location gives Russian crews access to the central and western Black Sea, the maritime approaches around the peninsula, and targets across southern Ukraine. Ukrainian officials have described Saki as an operational airfield used to control Black Sea airspace and support attacks against Ukrainian territory. That makes it a working part of Russia's war machine, not simply a symbolic site on a map. Ukraine's UAV campaign against Saki was therefore aimed at something larger than one night of destruction. Kiev's purpose was to reduce Russia's ability to operate aircraft from Crimea, disrupt the technical network behind those flights, and raise the cost of keeping the base active. Another goal was to force Russian commanders to spread aircraft, fuel vehicles, repair teams, and defensive systems across a wider area. When those assets are concentrated, they are easier to manage, but they also become more attractive targets. When dispersed, they may be safer from a single strike, yet every mission becomes harder to organize. The aircraft linked to Saki explain why the base carries such weight. The Su-30SM is a twin-engine, two-seat multi-role fighter that can perform several jobs. It can intercept hostile aircraft, escort other planes, patrol over the sea, support air defense, and attack targets on land or water. Russian naval aviation has also used the Su-30SM in Black Sea exercises, focused on finding and destroying aerial and maritime threats. Its flexibility makes each available aircraft valuable because one type can support several missions. The Su-24 serves a different role. It is an older tactical strike aircraft, but age alone does not make it useless. With trained crews, proper weapons, and reliable maintenance, it can still attack fixed facilities and battlefield positions. The real question is not when an aircraft was designed, but whether the system around it can keep that machine ready for combat. A decades-old jet that can take off, reach its target, and deliver weapons remains a threat. This is why Crimea matters beyond the airfield itself. Since the full-scale invasion began, Russia has used the peninsula as a logistics center, an air and naval operating area, a surveillance platform, and a protected rear zone supporting the southern front. Control of Crimea allows Moscow to project military power across the Black Sea and towards southern Ukraine. Ukraine's long-range campaign seeks to reduce that military value before any attempt to retake every position on the ground. Each strike is meant to weaken the network that turns occupied territory into usable combat power. Military planners call one part of that process sortie generation, but the idea is simple. A fighter cannot fight by itself. It needs fuel, weapons, a qualified pilot, trained ground crews, spare parts, diagnostic tools, a usable shelter or parking area, safe access to the runway, and current command information. Remove enough of those links, and aircraft may still be visible at the base while the number of missions falls. Ukraine does not have to destroy every jet at Saki. It only has to slow repairs, delay refueling, interrupt weapons preparation, and reduce how often Russian crews can launch. That creates a difficult choice for Moscow. Keeping aircraft together improves efficiency, but creates high-value targets. Spreading them out reduces the danger from one attack, but complicates logistics and maintenance. Moving them deeper into Russian-controlled territory offers more protection, yet increases flight time, fuel use, and response delays. Adding more air defenses around Saki may strengthen the base, but those systems must come from somewhere else. Russia built Crimea to project power outward, but Ukrainian strikes are forcing its forces to spend more time protecting themselves. That broader strategy became visible during the first attack, when Ukraine reportedly moved beyond exposed parking areas and began striking the shelters themselves. The first attack showed that moving aircraft under cover had not removed the danger. It had only changed the type of target Ukraine needed to reach. On July 1, 2026, the Security Service of Ukraine reported a UAV strike against Saki airbase. According to the SBU, 5 drones hit hangars used to store aircraft and aviation equipment. Ukrainian officials said Su-30 and Su-30SM fighters were believed to be inside 2 of those structures, while preliminary information also indicated that a fire broke out in one shelter containing an Su-30SM. These claims require careful language. The reported figure refers to 5 direct impacts on hangars, not 5 confirmed aircraft destroyed, and the final condition of the jets inside was not independently established at the time. Russia had moved more aircraft into covered positions because earlier Ukrainian attacks showed how exposed open parking areas could be. A jet sitting outside can be seen by satellites, struck directly by a drone or missile, damaged by fragments, or caught in the blast from a nearby explosion. A shelter reduces some of those risks. It hides the aircraft from direct observation, offers protection against flying debris, shields crews from bad weather, and gives technicians a controlled place to carry out repairs. However, cover does not mean safety. Once Ukraine began studying the locations, entrances, roof strength, and daily activity around those buildings, the shelters themselves became fixed and predictable targets. A direct hit on a hangar can cause far more damage than the hole visible in the roof. If an aircraft is parked inside, fragments may cut into the engine, radar, fuel system, or cockpit electronics. Heat can damage cables and sensitive parts, while smoke may contaminate equipment that must remain clean and dry. A blast can also destroy maintenance tools, power units, towing vehicles, spare components, and diagnostic systems gathered around the fighter. Fuel, oil, or compressed gas can increase the risk of fire, and a collapsed door may trap an otherwise usable aircraft inside. These are possible effects of a shelter strike, not a confirmed description of every building at Saki, but they explain why Ukraine chose this target set. In military terms, there is an important difference between destroying a platform and preventing it from completing its mission. A platform kill means the aircraft is lost beyond repair. A mission kill means the jet may still exist, but it cannot take off, reach its target, or perform its assigned role. A Su-30SM could be removed from combat by damage to its radar, engine, landing gear, fuel lines, or flight controls. It could also remain grounded because the equipment needed to inspect, tow, fuel, or arm it has been destroyed. Even a blocked route between the hangar and the runway can delay operations. For Ukraine, such an outcome may still be valuable because every grounded fighter reduces the pressure on Ukrainian forces elsewhere. The timing of the attack may have been as important as the explosive force of the drones. The supplied transcript presents a detailed reconstruction in which Ukraine waited until Russian aircraft and support assets had been concentrated at Saki before launching the operation. That exact sequence, including the claimed arrival of reinforcements and the precise launch plan, has not been independently confirmed and should be treated as a possible reconstruction rather than established fact. Still, the military logic is clear. An aircraft undergoing maintenance may be partly disassembled and unable to move quickly. A fighter being fueled carries greater fire risk, while tools, spare parts, and technicians gathered around it increase the possible effect of one strike. A hangar is therefore far more valuable when it is occupied than when it is empty, which means intelligence about timing can matter as much as the UAV carrying the warhead. The central irony was difficult for Moscow to ignore. Russia had responded to earlier attacks by placing aircraft behind stronger walls and reinforced doors. Ukraine then adjusted its own methods and began attacking those protected positions. This is the cycle of modern warfare. One side builds a defense, the other studies it, and a new method appears to challenge the protection. The shelter designed to save a Russian fighter could instead trap it beside burning fuel, damaged equipment, and blocked exits. Yet the first attack was only the beginning because Ukraine returned to Saki before Russia had time to restore confidence in the base's defenses. The second reported strike mattered because Ukraine returned to the same strategic airfield within days, challenging both the physical defenses around Saki and the Russian command's ability to adapt under pressure. On July 3, 2026, Ukrainian sources described the operation as the second security service of Ukraine attack on the base that week. According to the SBU, 7 hangars used to store aviation equipment were hit, and Su-30SM and Su-30 fighters, along with Su-24 tactical bombers, were believed to be inside. Preliminary Ukrainian information also suggested that at least 7 aircraft were destroyed or damaged. Those figures must remain separate. 7 shelters struck does not automatically mean 7 jets lost, because one structure may hold several aircraft, another may contain only support equipment, and visible damage to a roof does not reveal the full condition of everything below it. This is where battlefield reporting becomes more difficult. Most of the early details came from Ukrainian security sources, while Russia did not provide a complete public damage assessment. Independent analysts can later use commercial satellite images to look for collapsed roof sections, burn marks, blast patterns, scattered debris, or changes in where aircraft are parked. Such evidence can confirm that a structure was struck, but it often cannot show whether a jet was inside at the moment of impact, whether its radar and avionics survived, or whether repairs are possible. A shelter may appear damaged from above, while the aircraft beneath it remains recoverable. The opposite can also be true. A roof may still stand, while heat, fragments, and pressure have already caused serious internal harm. For that reason, the evidence should be divided into 3 clear levels. First, the visibly supported fact is that Saki Air Base and several aircraft shelters were attacked. Second, the official Ukrainian claim is that 7 hangars were hit and at least 7 aircraft were damaged or destroyed. Third, the unresolved issue is the number of permanent losses, the exact aircraft types affected, and how many could later return to service. This distinction does not weaken the story. It makes the analysis more credible because military damage is rarely as simple as counting black marks on a satellite image. The repeated nature of the attack may be more important than the first photographs. After a second strike, Russian commanders must ask whether Ukrainian intelligence is still watching the base, whether repair crews are safe, and whether aircraft moved to nearby positions are also being tracked. Every damaged shelter becomes a security problem, but every undamaged one may also be under observation. Another UAV wave could arrive during repairs, while technicians, fire crews, and support vehicles are gathered in predictable areas. Even without a new impact, that possibility can slow normal activity. The pressure also falls on people, not only machines. Pilots may be ordered to relocate aircraft with little warning. Maintenance teams may have to stop complex work and move equipment. Emergency crews can remain on alert for hours, while radar operators and short-range air defense units continue scanning for follow-up threats. Fatigue then becomes part of the battlefield. A base may still possess usable aircraft, fuel, and weapons, yet produce fewer missions because every routine task takes longer and every concentration of equipment appears dangerous. This is why the July 3rd strike carried wider strategic weight. Saki was not penetrated once because of a single unusual failure and then left alone. Ukraine claimed it could return within the same week, force Russia to react again, and strike facilities that had been improved to protect valuable aircraft. The deeper damage was therefore not limited to burned metal or broken roofs. It was the loss of confidence that a heavily defended airfield in Crimea could safely protect the combat power placed inside it. Ukraine then widened that pressure beyond Saki, moving against another airfield connected to Russia's growing use of unmanned strike systems. The strike on Vardisa showed that Ukraine's campaign was aimed not only at Russian fighters and bombers, but also at the infrastructure supporting long-range drone attacks. During the same broader operation reported on July 3rd, Ukrainian drones also reached Vardisa Air Base in occupied Crimea. According to the Security Service of Ukraine, 2 hangars were struck, and Shahed-type attack drones together with aviation equipment were stored inside those buildings. The available reporting supports 2 damaged structures containing drones and related gear. It does not clearly confirm 3 separate hangars. That distinction matters because the early account came from Ukrainian officials, and the full damage inside each building has not yet been independently established. The importance of Vardisa goes beyond the number of airframes that may have been present. Russia's long-range drone campaign depends on a complete chain of support before any Shahed-type weapon can leave the ground. The drones must be stored, inspected, fitted with warheads, programmed with navigation data, moved to launch positions, and connected to command systems. Crews also need spare parts, transport vehicles, power supplies, and equipment for testing engines and guidance units. If one part of that chain is damaged, several drones may remain physically intact but still be unable to fly. A successful attack on the support system can therefore delay future launches, even when satellite images show no large field of destroyed airframes. Because these weapons are normally prepared and launched in groups, losing shared equipment can affect an entire wave rather than a single drone. This is what connects Vardisa with Saki. At Saki, Ukraine focused on facilities linked to manned aviation, including shelters used for Su-30SM, Su-30, and Su-24 aircraft. At Vardisa, the target was connected to unmanned strike operations. Together, the 2 attacks placed pressure on both sides of Russia's air campaign from Crimea. Crewed aircraft used for patrol, interception, and strikes, and one-way drones used against Ukrainian cities and infrastructure. Ukrainian reporting described both bases as important military airfields supporting Russian operations on the southern front, which suggests a wider campaign rather than 2 separate raids chosen only for their visual effect. For Moscow, this creates a difficult resource problem. Strengthening the defenses around one airfield does not protect the rest of the peninsula. Every important site may need additional radar coverage, electronic warfare teams, short-range systems such as Panzer, more trained personnel, physical barriers, decoys, dispersal areas, and emergency crews. These measures require money, ammunition, vehicles, and soldiers who could otherwise support Russian forces in other sectors. A radar move to guard one drone storage site cannot cover another position at the same moment, while a Panzer battery assigned to an airbase is unavailable to protect a command post, fuel depot, or frontline formation. Russia can reduce risk by spreading aircraft and drones across several locations, but that answer also carries a cost. Wider dispersal makes maintenance slower, transport routes longer, and security harder to coordinate. Moving equipment more often increases wear, creates more opportunities for Ukrainian intelligence to track convoys, and forces commanders to protect a larger number of temporary sites. Decoys may confuse some attacks, yet real warehouses, launch equipment, fuel supplies, and trained crews must still operate somewhere. The geography itself cannot be hidden. Russia's expansion of dispersed drone sites shows that spreading operations can improve survival, but it also creates more locations that require protection and reliable logistics. That is why the Vardisa strike had geopolitical meaning beyond the reported damage to 2 hangars. Crimea links Russian military activity in the Black Sea with the Southern Front and Moscow's wider regional strategy. Ukraine is trying to reduce the peninsula's value as a protected launch platform by forcing Russia to defend more targets with limited resources. Moscow may move 1 aircraft, 1 radar, or 1 drone warehouse, but it cannot move Crimea, and it cannot place unlimited defenses around every possible target. The next question was how relatively small Ukrainian UAVs could continue threatening bases surrounded by some of Russia's most advanced air defense systems. Ukraine did not need every UAV to survive. It needed enough drones to approach from different directions, at the right altitude and timing, to force Russian defenses into a chain of difficult choices. The exact flight routes and interception sequence over Crimea remain uncertain. The supplied account describes separate formations, sea-skimming approaches, terrain masking, sacrificial aircraft, and possible engagements with S-400, S-350, and Panzer S-1 systems. But these details should be treated as a plausible reconstruction rather than independently confirmed events. One likely method would divide the UAVs into several groups with different tasks. A decoy formation could appear first, climb higher, and create a clearer radar return, drawing attention and possibly forcing Russia to launch interceptors. The main strike element could remain closer to the sea or ground, waiting for defensive crews to focus elsewhere. Reserve drones might follow at a distance, ready to exploit any temporary opening, while a flanking group could approach from another direction and force radars or weapons to turn. This kind of coordination allows relatively cheap machines to create effects once associated with far more expensive combat aircraft. Russia's defensive network is designed in layers. The S-400 provides long-range protection and can engage many aerial targets, while the S-350 covers the medium-range zone between the outer defenses and the protected site. The Panzer S-1 combines short-range missiles with automatic cannons and is intended to defend important positions at close distance. Together, these systems create a powerful shield, but each engagement still depends on detection, identification, weapon assignment, and a clear view of the target. Low-altitude flight can make that process harder. Ground-based radar is limited by the curvature of the Earth and by mountains or other objects that block its line of sight. A small UAV flying near the Black Sea may also blend with reflections from waves, moisture, and coastal terrain. Over land, hills, buildings, trees, and ravines can briefly hide it from view. This does not make the drone invisible, but it can shorten the warning time and interrupt continuous tracking. Some UAVs may also be assigned roles in which survival is not expected. A drone can still complete its task by drawing a missile, revealing a radar position, forcing a launcher to change direction, or creating several extra seconds for another aircraft. An expensive interceptor may be worth firing if it protects a fighter, command center, or fuel site. So the cost comparison cannot stop at the price of one missile against one drone. Ukraine gains the greater advantage when Russia must consume ammunition, expose defensive positions, keep crews on constant alert, and still allow part of the formation to reach valuable infrastructure. That infrastructure is the real center of the campaign. Ukraine has focused on shelters, maintenance areas, fuel vehicles, technical equipment, and facilities connected to Shahed operations. A destroyed aircraft is a platform kill, but a mission kill can be almost as important because it prevents a jet from flying. Damaged tools, blocked shelter doors, lost fuel trucks, or debris on a taxiway can reduce several missions without destroying every aircraft. Russia may respond with greater dispersal, stronger electronic warfare, more point defenses, decoys, and deeper relocation. Yet each answer requires money, personnel, fuel, and time. Crimea once helped Moscow project power outward, but repeated attacks increasingly force Russian forces to look inward. The final judgment, therefore, cannot rest only on how many aircraft burned, but on whether Russia can still operate from the peninsula with the same speed, cost, and confidence as before. What matters now is not only how much metal burned at Saki, but how deeply Ukraine disrupted the system behind Russia's air power in Crimea. The exact condition of every aircraft remains uncertain. The detailed loss figures still come from Ukrainian officials, and parts of the air defense battle are reconstructed. Yet the wider pattern is clear. Ukraine reportedly struck Saki twice in 1 week, targeted shelters and technical support, then extended the pressure to Vardisa and facilities linked to Shahed operations. Russia must now defend several aviation sites at once while supporting forces across other fronts. Crimea has not become militarily useless, but it is becoming harder, slower, and more expensive for Moscow to operate from it with confidence. Can Russia protect every major airfield without weakening defenses elsewhere? For more clear, fact-based analysis of modern weapons, battlefield strategy, and the geopolitical decisions shaping this war, subscribe to Military Force and join the discussion below.